Hey Mike, John here with Get on the Track. It's a little bit overdue, but wanted to get the data for you and do a data review from the laps that we did at COTA 2 Sundays ago. Just wanted to do the breakdown and show you what I saw and show you where we can make some improvements. I'm going to start off by saying that your driving out there was honestly awesome. You did a fantastic job. If you take a look, I've got my fastest lap, which was that 240. I unfortunately don't have the data from the 242 that you ran out there. But what I did do was take the 245 from the last session that we did together. It seemed like you were running pretty good in the afternoon, and that was a pretty quick session for you as well. And we didn't encounter a lot of traffic during that lap. But again, so we're looking at a 5 second spread between the two of us, and frankly, that was that. If when we break down the data, what you're going to see is that I made it up by just being incrementally faster than you all through the course, which is a really good sign. What it's saying is that you don't have a lot of big things to work on. There's just a lot of little things that you need to tie together to get down to that lap time. Obviously, not having the ABS with the car was causing a little bit of, not a little bit, it was causing a fair amount of frustration and limiting us to a certain extent with how hard we could push the car. So if you can figure out how to get that fixed for the next session, whenever you do decide to get back out there, I think it'll have a pretty significant improvement. Honestly, I'm going to throw it out there and say I'd be willing to bet you could get probably 2 seconds a lap by having that ABS and being able to go to those brakes a bit more confidently. I think the data is going to show that. You'll see that from my plot versus your plot. So that said, we'll go ahead and get started, dive into it, and I'm sure you've seen this before, given your familiarity with AIM. But right now, the fields that I've got up, I'm actually going to eliminate RPM. But right now, I've got brake pressure, throttle position, and GPS speed. For the time being, there may be some times when I pull in, there will definitely be some times when I pull in, excuse me, the steering angle sensor, as there's some value to that to show you what's happening, specifically with that concept of trail braking that I was going through with you towards the end of the day. We'll take a look here. So we'll just start the lap at turn one, which is where we usually begin. I'm going to go ahead and dial in on that, get a little bit of a zoom going. So maybe go one more there. So through here, we're covering kind of AIM breaks the track down into more segments that I typically utilize. I usually think of it as a 3 or 4 segment track, but as you can see, it's saying it's 1 through 6, and that's actually, I believe they do it by the turns. So we'll go through turns 1 through 6 here, take a look at it, and kind of really dial it in. So leading into turn 1, you can see here, both of us are carrying about the same amount of speed as we enter turn 1. You can see I'm a little bit more confident under braking and coming off that throttle. So you see I carry a little bit of, I carry braking a little bit later than you do. I ramp it up a little bit higher than you do. Admittedly, here I think I was likely fighting lockup. So you see the brake pressures, our peak brake pressures are about the same. The big thing to call out is my trail braking through here, and I said I'd do it, and I didn't realize I was going to do it this early, but I'm going to go ahead and throw in the steering angle sensor. When I dial in the steering angle sensor, you can kind of see, you can see pretty clearly that I have some overlap here, and I'm actually carrying brake pressure all the way down to my maximum steering input, right? So there's light brake pressure all the way down there. And right here is where I start dialing that steering angle in. you're doing the same thing, but you bleed that brake pressure off quite a bit. I call that popping off the brakes. You probably heard me refer to that a few times when we were in the car. You want to avoid that pop off the brake, and you want to carry a slight bit of brake pressure to prevent the weight from coming off the front end of the car. Helps it to turn better. So the impact of that you can see with the speed, right? So my delay on coming off the throttle gives me a slightly higher top speed, I think, through here. I might be wrong. You had, it looks like I might have, no, you had 122, but I carried 122 just a little bit longer. And so that allows me to carry speed all the way down the straightaway, right? And actually, ironically, let's take a look here and we can, because we have the video, which I kind of like, it gives us a good idea of what's going on as we enter the corner. So if you remember, I was calling out that white line as our braking point on the right side in the green. So we roll into it, and I'll actually use this slider here. There's that white line. It's going in too big of increments, but there's that white line right there. That's my braking marker. And you can see you're already going to the brakes a little bit before that. Whereas if you look at me, granted, it's a small difference, right? But let's take a look here. I might be cheating a little bit. And again, this probably has to do with lack of confidence in the APS. But you can see that I start ramping on that brake pressure. Oh, no. Okay, cool. There we go. Sorry. All right. So there's that white line. As we get up to it. All right. So you're braking a little bit before it, and let's take a look at what my breaker pressure goes on just a little bit after it. So literally, it's really curious. That's the first white line. So you're going to it at that white line, and I'm waiting just a little bit longer and then ramping up that brake pressure a little bit higher. So again, those points move throughout the day, right? As you get more confident in carrying speed, you need to be a little bit more careful in bleeding that speed off. But that white line in the green, it is that first white line in turn one. That should be, so it's red, and then there's that white line on that right side. Great reference point for using for braking. You want to be probably a little bit after that based off of what we're seeing from me, especially once you get that ABS engaged, because you'll be able to carry that a little bit better. And then we're going to bend it in here. You're going to see I carry a little bit of trail brake, and then I really dial that steering angle in to try to get down to that apex right there. You can see it coming down, boom. And I'm trying to backside that apex. You can see I'm kind of pretty well rotated once I get by it. And you're doing a pretty good job there too. It's we're both getting some pretty good angle on that, but I think the trail brake is allowing me to rotate the car a little bit harder. And if you look, I'm a little bit more patient going on that throttle. You can also see it in the speed chart, right? Like, it's interesting, but you see I'm carrying a little bit higher mid-corner speed. Your minimum speed here is 35, and it seems negligible, but my minimum speed through there is 37. So I've got 2 miles an hour more than you on that mid-corner speed, and that does make up a pretty good gap. One thing that we don't have here that I typically have, and again, I haven't worked with the movie or the data off the camera too frequently. So I'm a little annoyed because typically I have a differential between the lap times, which shows me where the big differences in speed occur, and time, where we gain a lot of time. But basically, any area under that curve is time that's being gained by one or the other of us. So the blue line, because I'm carrying more speed than you, I'm gaining time all through that area under the curve. And then here I give up just a little bit to you. And what's interesting is you see you get a little bit greedy on that throttle, so we get a little bit of a boost out of that throttle there, and then you give it up because you come out of the throttle. You see that pullback in the throttle. That's from going on the throttle a little bit too early, whereas I go on it with confidence and I'm able to carry some pretty good throttle all the way through there. That being said, As we come out of turn one, right, our speeds are pretty darn even. I mean, there's maybe a 1 mile an hour difference. You're carrying really good speed on that hill down to 2. But then I see, sorry, I have a little bit of commentary here in the background. um, you're carrying good throttle into there, but then as we head into that apex, you can see that you're backing out of that throttle a little bit. Admittedly, I'm at fault for doing the same thing. As I get close to that apex, you can see me come out of the throttle a little bit more, and then I go back to the throttle, and again, I'm pushing it a little bit harder than you are through turn 2. One thing that's interesting on the variations on the line is I'm carrying a slightly tighter line, which we can see if we zoom in on this map. So I don't use quite as much track as you do out here. And all of that stems from I'm using, if you take a look, our lines are pretty darn similar through the entry point. I come in maybe a little bit tighter than you, but what I'm doing is I'm using that compression in here because you're getting a ton of grip as the car compresses due to it bottoming out with that gravity, like coming to the bottom of that turn. You're getting a ton of grip through there. And so I lean on that grip to get myself a little bit, to carry this line a little bit tighter than you. I drive a little bit less distance than you do, and then get myself set up and ready to make that turn in here. So you're almost a little bit later in here, but we'll keep flowing through and take a look at what's happening in turn 3 as we move through here. So again, here you can see fair amount of gap under here, right, the area under the curve. This is me gaining speed on you, so it's negligible. Well, not negligible, right, but it's not massive. It's up there. It's up to 6 miles an hour, right? uh and that it's those small differences over the entire lap that gave me those 5 seconds. It's being able to find that makes a relatively big difference. So good stuff in here. We see that light braking for both of us, right? Coming into turn 3, as we set up for turn 4, that brake pressure is solely there to just bleed enough speed to get that car to turn and to rotate and to allow it to get in there nicely. So we want to get that front end grip that we want there. All right. So I'm going to zoom out here, zoom back in on that next segment. So we'll do from like 4 to, we'll do like 4 to 9. So, all right. So here you can see you're going hard on the throttle coming into the entry for turn 3, which is kind of funny. It's interesting to see the differences between the two of us. You're giving it a nice flip of throttle just before you go to the brakes. And I think that's you trying to, you're realizing that your entry to turn 3 was a little bit too slow. So you're trying to make up for it to get there. And then coming into turn 4, exiting turn 3, the one thing I want to call out, right, is if you look, it's not massive, but I'm angled slightly more to the left than you at the entry of 3. Again, ideally I want to be even closer out here. This wasn't a perfect lap for me, but if I got a little bit closer out here, it would allow me to carry better speed into turn 4. So again, what I really want is I want to be as we come turning into here, I'm going to start carrying this through here. We really want to get out. Where is it? We really want to get out and get the car close to this line over here. You did a good job here. It's interesting there. I'm like, I might going back to it, honestly, according to the video, you were doing pretty darn well over there. If anything, I'm a little bit, let's take a look at here. Show me where, what I want to take a look at is as we come through here. What I'm looking for is where this is positioned relatively similarly in the video. So if you take a look here, right, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little detailed here, but I believe that I'm continuing to let the car run a little bit more to the left. Damn it, give me smaller increments. I'm continuing to let the car run a little bit further to the left, and it's interesting because the differences in where we are in the video kind of makes the difference in terms of how this is laid out. But basically, this is a little bit further to the right in my camera, I believe, as I roll through there. And my turn in is just so subtly different. It's a little later than you. And here, one way you're running a little bit of a cheater lap, which is totally fine. If you look, you're using more of that green bit than I am on the right hand side, and that's great. It's allowing you to carry a better line, and it's part of the reason why there's very little difference between the speeds that we have here. Like literally, if you look, like we're trading off through here. At one point in time, you're 79, or I'm 78, 79. Then you see me drop a mile an hour below you. Like really little gains being made here. The one place where I do feel it's kind of interesting is you are carrying a little bit more speed mid corner into turn 6, and then I give it up quite a bit. One thing I want to call out, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. Take a look at this is where I'm telling you to look at those grandstands. So, and aim for those grandstands. So if you look, I'm continuing to aim for the green there, and it's subtle, but or I'm actually, I mean, if you look, I'm aiming at the yellow versus where you are. I focus on trying to get the car out about mid track to get out here, and you can see the difference here as well, right? So as we come out here, my turn in for 6, I give up a little bit, and we're both getting a little bit of braking here. My braking is a little bit more than yours, and what that creates is it creates this difference where my minimum speed entering turn 6 is actually lower than yours. I sacrifice it, I get down to 63, but then take a look at our lines on the exit of turn 6. So I'm coming in here, and you can see I get a big application of power here and bring the car through here and get it over there. Now, I'm kind of picking nits here. I think both of these lines are probably pretty good, but I think if you give yourself a little bit wider berth, you might be able to carry some more speed going into turn 6. So just something to think about. And you see, I start to apply that power pretty hard as soon as I get lined up with that straight line through here. And again, it's funny. I feel like there's a ton of pointers at COTA if you run it right. So right here, that's a pointer that I use that I'm running straight along this line, straight along this right hand side. If you watch, I think you come out a little bit more than I do. No, you're carrying a good. This is a good lap for you. This was a really solid lap. So you're coming in there looking good. I'm coming out of the throttle a little bit because I went to it harder. I'm carrying a little bit more mid speed or mid corner speed than you. So 4 miles an hour as I start. That's not technically mid corner yet, but my entry speed is a little bit higher than you, right? So I'm carrying like 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour more than you mid corner right through that apex. And then you should see me apply that throttle. Your application is good, and your application is really good here. I probably could have pushed a little bit harder and gotten that throttle down a little bit more as we exit here. But, and I want to call this out here too, right? You can see I'm comfortable getting that car out a little bit closer to that curbing, right? Like coming out wide here, like coming up into turn 8, I'm totally happy getting that car out to that curbing where if you look, you're still a little bit off, right? There's 4 or 5 feet there. Remember, turn 8 is a complete throwaway corner. So all we have to do is we got to slow that car down to the right speed for that turn in right here on the right side to make sure that we hook and hang on to that curbing on that right side going through there. I'm going to drill out, and then I'll drill back in right here, getting us into turn 8. Boom. That'll get us, yeah, all right, get us through to turn 12. That works. All right, so here we see my brake application is a little bit harder than yours, and I also carry it a little ways through. What I'm doing here is that's due to the fact that I'm carrying a little bit more speed than you. I got 76 miles an hour on you, and I give it a nice firm brake application. And then coming through here, we're pretty darn similar. 59, you beat me a little bit mid-corner, and this is something that I want to keep throwing in there for you, right? It's patience on that throttle. Every time we see this graph look like this, it's you needing to have a little bit more patience on the throttle. Now, ironically, there's a little bit of it happening with me as well. You can see it here. This is my dip here, but what I'm getting at is if you watch here, my throttle application, there's a little hesitation there, but then I drive it down and I'm up to 100% throttle here, whereas you're like like on, off, on, off, on, right? And here, I think I do this probably mid apex here coming through. That's right around the apex for turn 9. So you can see if I back this up just a little bit. So there's a little bit of a release as I'm just getting that car to turn here. And then I go back on that throttle and then you see it squeeze it. Here, I broke my rule, right? Or my, what I kept telling you. I think I don't have a good excuse for lifting here other than just kind of a force of habit. Whereas if you look, really well done on your part, you held that throttle down and you can see our speeds are pretty close. And then you're carrying a little bit more than me right there. You got 102, 103 versus my 99. So really carrying good speed into there. And then we see this repeating over and over again as we go into turn, as we go into turn 11 here. You see here, it's a little bit difficult to do this sometimes, but let's see if boom, there we go. So I'm just going to zoom in pretty closely here. And again, what I'm getting at is you see me come off the gas just a little bit later than you do. And then I ramp up that brake pressure a little bit higher than you do. And that allows me to carry, if you look, it's significant here. It's probably 150 yards, right? Where I'm carrying, is it 7, 6, 7, 10? Yeah, so it's almost 10 miles an hour more than you for 150 yards. And again, I bet that's a place where I made a relatively good gap on you. And then if you look, my mid corner speed, and this comes with time with that confidence. I'm carrying a little bit more mid corner speed than you coming into there as well. If you look, one thing that's interesting too is it's worth calling out with our steering angles. You can see I ramp up and I peak that steering wheel out here. So my motion is very much a smooth all the way in until I'm good with it and bring it back, where it seems like yours is softer and you're holding that steering angle a little bit longer. Something to think about in the future. But then you see I exit there. I've got a little bit more mid-corner speed than you. You go to the throttle with a bit more confidence than I do, and then you ramp it up. And that gets us pretty darn close, right? Because my mid-corner speed, I was 3 miles an hour more than you. And then we're seeing a 1 to possibly 2 mile an hour difference going all the way down that back straight. So we'll dial into that back straight, get to the end here, boom, and then we'll get some zoom going on here. All right, cool. This should get us through few more corners here. Back straight, again, we see this pattern repeating all the time, right? You're coming off the throttle a little bit earlier than I am. Probably if we look here, that's probably maybe 100 yards. So that's a fair amount of distance to cover. So we can take a look at it, right? So let's see what we can see in the video here. So here you're coming out and that's the end of that. Boom. Trying to figure out if that video is big enough for me to see the brake. Trying to see if I can see those brake markers as we go through there. Come on, give me more. All right, well, let's take a look at where. So maybe a good reference point. You can see, boom. I'm starting to, my brake application actually happens. Give me a marker. I think I need glasses. Nope. Oh, all right. Yeah, that stinks. I want a higher res video. Um, you can see though, so on the ground, my braking begins right around that white, that first, that's really interesting, that first white line in the green. So if you see, I'm coming in, boom, there's that white line, and my braking goes on. Ramp that pressure up, and you can see I really dropped that speed. And again, really basic here, but this allows me, I've kind of been repeating this concept. So you peak out at 136 right here, and meanwhile I've peaked out at 140, and I've done it probably 100 yards longer than you did. So that gap under the curve, I'm making up a ton of time on you right there. And then we see going into 12. Let's take a quick look at our lines into 12 here. So this is, I was trying to encourage you to do this, right? So I'm coming in slightly shallower into 11 because frankly, you can take this as an earlier apex corner because that straight between turn 12 and turn 13 isn't long enough to make a difference over what I can carry in here through speed, right? And I've just demonstrated that I can carry that speed in here longer. And then if you see, right, my brake pressure ramps up, and then you can see it kind of trail off as my steering angle goes in. You were doing a good job trail braking here too. I want to call that out. You can see brake pressure here, and you're ramping up that steering angle. So you're definitely starting to get the hang of that trail braking and looking really good doing that. But my line is definitely a little different. My turn in is a little earlier, and then I allow that car to come out and run a little bit wider. And you can probably see, let's see how wide I get here. So I got a little bit of run over, not much more than you, but then coming in here, let's take a look at what happens after this. Kind of curious about this. We got similar lines here. The one thing that's pretty pronounced here with mine, you do a good job here. I was going to call out, you want to try to get over by this, you want to try to get over to the left side of the track by this white line here so that you can get the car straightened up through here to get a nice bit of braking done here. So let's take a look at where that brake happens. So yeah, I could be a little bit straighter when I get that brake application in. And again, just repeating the whole concept here, you see my brake pressure go up high versus yours is a little bit like you see it peak, right? And that's where I get, I maximize the bleed off of the speed. And then I start dropping that brake pressure down as I turn the car in. So just something to keep in mind when you're working through there. So we dial that in, coming through here, not major differences here, right? I'm going a little bit slower here, and then we trade places, and I'm making area under the curve up through as we come through turn 14. So carrying good speed through there. My peak is a little bit higher going through 14 because if you recall, I want to try getting my braking happening here. It looks like I was lying a little bit there. I think, yeah. So I was saying we should carry speed through that red to red, through this red section here. We should be on the gas. And it looks like I was lying. I was carrying a little bit of brake pressure prior to that. So got to give that up, give that speed up. And then turn 15, we carry two slightly different lines. This is critical here. We want to get that car turned in and get it past that apex so that I can maximize that radius out here. I could have come out. It would have been interesting to see in an ideal world, I might do a little bit more of a hybrid between the two of us and come out here. Whatever this line is, I'm kind of curious to see whatever this line is, looks, I wonder if they're trying to claim that's an optimum line. I have a really hard time believing that you want to get the car out that wide. But so I come in here, come through there, and then we'll see again. Oh, I'm in the wrong spot here. So turn 14, going into 15, and then I'm going to pop out, zoom out, and try to zoom this back in. Boom. I think that'll do it. Let's take a look here. All right. Okay. So we'll go ahead and drop back into this. So I'm carrying a tighter line. I'm getting that apex, but from there, frankly, if we, oh, damn it, there we go. Sorry about that. So my mid corner speed, a little bit higher than you. We see some area under the curve there. I'm at 35. 33 is my minimum. So I'm 2 miles an hour faster through you at the apex, and then start to build it on. And you see some separation in there. I've got 2 miles an hour down to 1 mile an hour as we head into the entry for turn 16, 17, 18. Coming through here, we can see I'm running a slightly tighter line than you are. And then I probably I'm guessing I let the car wash out maybe a little bit more. Nope, not too much. Carry that car through there. So we're running relatively similar lines in here, although I turn in a little bit earlier. I find that if you run a little bit too wide there, you end up in the marbles, and it feels like it's a little bit off camber too. Like I think, yeah, so I'm initiating that turn in a little bit earlier. I find that if you let the car run too far out there, on the outside of turn 16, it doesn't quite turn in as well if you turn in a little bit earlier, a little bit before that bridge, and initiate it and get that car to load. Coming through here, like we'll go ahead and run through here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit to give us a bit more room, but you can see again, it's just small differences that are giving me that total 5-second advantage, right? So I saw it's anywhere from 2 to 4 miles an hour is what I'm carrying for a difference through 16, 17, 18. Here, it's interesting. Curious to see if something happened here that caused you to give up a little bit of time. And I don't think so. I think it was just, we're looking at the throttle position. I'm carrying a little bit more throttle position than you are going through here. Sorry, right here you can see I was looking at the 49 and 34. So you can just see I'm going to the throttle with a little bit more confidence than you, really letting that rear wheel, that left outer rear wheel grip up and go. And then you see we both get a nice section of full throttle here. You carry it a little longer than I do, which is impressive. And we get a nice peak here. And frankly, I got to give you serious credit here, because if you notice, your mid corner speed through 19 was higher than me. You had me by 6 miles an hour, which is significant, right? So you had a nice good turn in there. You use a little bit more of, I think let's take, that's, so this is part of it, and I'm okay with this. You were very aggressive on this one with how much track you used. So here I was outside of that. The sausage, the orange or yellow sausage on the inside at the apex. Whereas I think you may have clipped a little bit of grass there. That's a little. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a little aggressive. So I dial it back a little bit there from there. But this is a really good point to show you how important it is to run the line, and how much difference you have with just a couple of feet. That's maybe a car width, right? So not even a car width. So it's 4 or 5 feet, but that 4 or 5 feet allowed you to carry significantly more speed through there, right? So you're running 66 miles an hour faster than, or not 66, but 6 miles an hour faster than me. So really, really good job there. Nothing I can speak badly about with you there. I go to the throttle a little bit more confidently coming out of 19, and you can see that You can see that in the graph right here, right? Like here's my throttle, here's yours. And if we dial it down to distance, and again, it's interesting here, right? Like you applied it nice and gradually here, and then there was a little bit of hesitation where you went up versus I went on it a little bit harder, and then it looks like I dropped and went back up. So just something to keep in mind as we're running through there. Sometimes be a little bit more patient. This isn't a really good example of it, but sometimes be a little more patient with that throttle, and you'll be able to have less of that pullback. This is probably a good example of it here, where you see my throttle continually ramping up, whereas you've got a minor pullback, and this is coming through turn 20. So turn 20, it's kind of, this is a rinse, lather, repeat situation because we're hearing the same thing again. I come in, I carry that throttle just a little bit longer than you, and then you see my brake pressure ramp up here, right? It's carrying on that throttle position a little longer, ramp up that brake pressure, and then let it roll off, and you can see my trail braking coming into here. Steering angle cranks up, and you can see it peaks a little bit more than yours there. I think that's just I'm getting, like, once I get to that apex, I'm ready to start dialing it out, and that's just experience and having a little bit more seat time than you. And then we just see it ramp up, see full throttle from there. And then honestly, you exited 20 with a bit more speed than me. So I'll go ahead and give you kudos on this. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to zoom out, and we can take a quick look at what happened here. So you carried more speed than me. And so down that front straightaway, you were carrying a lot. You had 5 miles an hour on me. So that was a really good exit there. And I'm not sure, I hate to say it, but I'm not sure what happened to me here. I may have come into that a little bit too fast. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why I gave that speed up, but I mean, it's worth calling out, right? There are sectors in the track where you're running faster than I did. So overall, just a really good session, really good overall day. I know you made the gains that you were looking for, and I think you were pretty happy with how we did out there. I don't know if I called it out, but big thing to keep in mind, right? I may have said this at the beginning, and I'm sorry if I forgot, but you ran a 2:45 in the afternoon. I ran a 2:40. Or the big thing is that my understanding is the track lost 4 to 5 seconds through the day. So your 242 was a 246, 247. And my 240, talking about at the end of the day, and my 240 is a good indicator that your car is definitely in the right conditions, a mid 230s car, possibly as fast as 235, if not a little bit faster, because I was giving time up there. You factor in the fact that you've got the ABS there. We could theoretically see that car hit like a 234 in my mind, which is smoking for the setup that you have. So overall, again, I was really impressed with the car, really impressed with your performance. It was just an awesome day, awesome couple of days working with you, Mike. Again, let me know if you have any questions from this. I'm going to post it on YouTube and send you the link. And I hope all is going well, man. And we'll talk to you soon. Later.